Welcome, physical educators. This is Thinking PE.
Because Phi-Ed is more than just fun and games.
I'm Stacy Nelson,
And I'm Jamie Seneca.
and it's our goal to dig deeper beyond the activities that make your class awesome.
So buckle up and join us on this journey.
Welcome to another edition of Thinking PE. Jamie, it's spring in Minnesota. What are you thinking about these days?
Well, speaking of spring, we're actually starting our spring break. And I got to tell you what I'm thinking is my timeline is after spring break, I start thinking about field day.
Sure.
Start starting the planning process involved with that. And I got to ask you, what do you think of field day?
Oh, that's kind of a loaded question for me because I did not go to school as a top priority to be an elementary Phi-Ed teacher. I was more open to be with the older kids, and I was. And because of budget cuts, I got pushed into elementary PE. And when I went there, I got warned, beware of the track and field day. Everybody has their opinion. And so I kind of went in kind of scared, like, what do I do? To be honest, I'm not big on it. It's fine. It's a fun celebration, but the kids have a blast in my gym every day. And so if we went without it, I'd be fine. And I went in there with that attitude, and it ended up being where it kind of shifted the whole thing from being the PE teacher's job to the rest of the school that really wanted it. They said, hey, this is important that the parents expect that the kids have a blast. We need to do this. And I said, oh, well, I'm happy to help. But then it got it off my shoulders. And now it was a school-wide celebration. It wasn't a culminating thing of just my PE, things I did throughout PE, or just a PE focus and a big activity that way. So I don't know if that gives you a hint of what I like.
Yeah.
I don't want to own it. I don't want it to be my thing, and I'm interrupting the teacher's day and begging them to help out. And I want it to be a school-wide thing where, hey, this is our thing. At the end of the school year, we're going to go out and celebrate together. And so we're all willing to pitch in. So it's not really too hard on anybody. And to be honest, that's what ours is. My track and field day isn't much harder than when I set up 8 to 10 stations in my gym. It's really not a whole lot harder than that because I got so much help from the rest of the building.
Yeah, that's important. I got to tell you, just thinking about field day, and a lot of great memories. I think that's what it does too, is it also creates some memories, but yes, some of the memories are not so easily forgotten. Like I just remember it was a beautiful sunny day out, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the dark storm cloud came in, and we got absolutely dumped on for about 15 minutes. Just out of nowhere, poured, 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts, people running and screaming, equipment flying everywhere. It was mass chaos. And I was like, what do you do? And at the end of the day, the principal was like, we just created memories.
Well, and that's wonderful to have a principal that way. I wasn't worried about what the parents might think, or I'm guessing most of the parents were in the same boat going, well,
and
got away, kid.
Kids absolutely loved it.
Oh.
And I think the only person that was probably stressed out was me. And that was self-inflicted.
Right.
But yeah, this will, another fascinating one is the other teachers help develop stations, and the art teacher developed a station where the kids were actually painting on the tables. She had tables out there, and then between stations, the parent volunteer would clean it off. The parent volunteer was not too thrilled to be cleaning that station. And the art teacher felt really, really bad, but we talked about it. And that was probably one of the best stations from the kids' perspective. And I think we often forget about that who's this for?
Right.
And the kids absolutely love doing finger paintings on a table and just doing their thing, creating. They had a blast with it.
What you needed to do is bring the fire department in with their fire hose, and in between times, let that parent volunteer use the fire hose. So the volunteer had a good time too.
So, let's talk about that for a second here, talking things to do before field day, because we put this out there and we kind of broke it down now to give some hacks or some hints, some pro tips, if you will. And we reached out to the social media community, hey, what are some pro tips? We kind of broke it down into 3 areas of what are some tips before field day? What are some tips during field day? And what are some tips after field days? When talking with the prior, the first thing is just choosing a date. And you would think nothing goes into that, but there's a lot of things to consider, like when is your fifth grade graduation? When are your class field trips? Do you have concerts at the end? So it's a big coordination piece to make sure that that date is open and that staff know about it early enough.
Yeah, and some people choose to go a little earlier, and then you have to really make sure that there's no testing going on and things like that. And there's advantages to going early and advantages to going later. You've got the weather earlier. The media people reached out and they kind of shared that, right? That some of the people like to go early in April because they like to avoid weather.
Yeah.
Some
And I think they
people
must have
like
been
to go
from
later.
further down south where it's significantly warmer.
Sure,
Uh,
that makes a
and
lot
they
of
try to
sense.
avoid that dangerous heat and try to do it earlier in the year in early April, actually.
Oh, makes sense. Whereas up in Minnesota, yeah, it's going to get warm. We've had 90-degree days that day, and it still
Yeah.
works. But it's not almost guaranteed you're going to have that 90-degree day. And we
Some
like
groups
to.
try to go, the Friday before Memorial Weekend is a popular one, but that one also, a lot of parents might pull their kids from school on Friday for an extended weekend. So you may get some push. It may work to your benefit. You may get some pushback on kids missing field day because it is a popular event.
Yeah, no, we've run into that. And the teachers have loved it. They have appreciated it because that's a throwaway day for them anyway, because so many kids miss that day.
Mhm.
And if they miss, they're off doing vacations or something. It's a kind of a bummer to miss the day, but it's not like half the school or anything. But it's enough to make it so the teachers really appreciate, hey, let's just do something different that day anyway. That's the feedback I've gotten. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you get some parents that, those poor, they probably get it where the kid goes, nope, we can't leave on vacation because that's track and field day. And some arguments at home going that night. So
So
yeah, that's a good point though.
I say once you have your date, it comes down to the organization of the format. And we kind of thought about three different formats that are popular traditional field day models. And the first one was just a regular track and field where you have actual track and field events, hurdles, lawn jump, your traditional track and field events. We have what you call what I would call class events, where classes rotate from station to station as a Mr. Nelson's fifth grade class or Mr. Seneca's third grade class rotating. Yep. And then you have the festival model. And you want to talk a little bit about the festival model, because that seemed to be a pretty exciting one, but it didn't seem like very many groups utilize that model.
Yeah, and that's what we ended up going with, partially because I didn't want this to be all about me and just Fayed. And so we set up some stations that are not necessarily Fayed orientated. They're just pretty fun, some things like a balloon toss and things like that. And so it's basically set up. We did it where the teachers did not have to man a station, and the teachers did not have to worry about keeping their kids together and making it stressful that way. We're all out there. We're all kind of making sure kids don't wander off into the streets and that.
Into the abyss.
But otherwise, the kids are free to go to any station they want to, and they can repeat stations. And we have a lot of them set up where they have, like if they're doing a beanbag toss, I have a cone set up for the bronze. If they make it past, throw it past the first cone, the second cone is the silver, the third cone is the gold, and they can come back to the station as many times as they want to. And so the kids are free to roam, and then they have a little card that's just on their back, and the parent volunteers at the station just circle gold, silver, or bronze. And if they come back and they get a better score, we just circle it. It's really, nobody looks at this. The kids just keep it, once they're all done. And it also allows the teacher that is worried about a student that's really not getting involved, halfway through, they can look at a kid's back and see, oh, you've only been to one station. And they can take that kid by the hand and kind of get them involved. And just kind of another way of checking as we go through the day to make sure everybody's involved. So the teachers love it because they're not in charge, and they get to just kind of roam and have fun with the kids and interact with the kids, give high fives, cheer them on, that kind of thing. And then we only have it for like an hour and a half. And so then they're all done, and then they go in and do other end of the year activities for the rest of the day. So that's kind of how we set it up. But I was curious about you. What do you have the most experience with?
My former district, we did the festival model. I didn't use the bronze, silver, and gold. I thought that was an interesting an interesting way to add competition into it for those that choose.
Yep.
And then I've also done the rotation where you just have various stations that the classes rotate through. So when I was growing up, when I was in elementary, we had the traditional actual field day with actual track and field events. But
Did
when
you
it comes
have
to
awards?
choosing, what's that?
Did you have awards and like ribbons and
Yeah.
things?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that too.
It was
Yeah,
basically
we did
it
that.
was basically an elementary track meet.
Yep, which was really good for the athletes.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to talk to some of my friends that weren't athletes to see if they had as positive image of it as I do, as I do. Kind of curious
And that's
about
where the festival, I really drawn to that because of the choice involved.
Yep.
In that it really allows kids. Your initial thought is it's going to be chaos because all these kids are running free, but when you have 20 stations and they have a card,
Yeah.
and they can go to different whatever station they want with whomever they want,
Yeah.
and there's enough staff around it, it actually runs very smoothly.
It really does. And then some of them are like, we have the cooperative walk where they have those boards with four
Yeah.
people have to walk at the same time. And yeah, they're competing against four other people, but it's all, nobody's practiced this before. It's all just good fun. And even some parents will get in there with their kids and compete. And, it's just it really goes well, partially because there's not only staff, but you often have a ton of parents around too. So the kids really aren't an issue as far as behavior.
True. So, one thing that field days all, but before the event that really depend on is volunteers.
Yep.
And, a number of different ways to get volunteers. And traditionally you just send out emails and ask. One person commented that they use Sign Up Genius to have parents sign up for different slots of their choice. And I thought that was an interesting one because now you have parents choosing which event they want to, or how they want to help.
Yeah.
You actually had teachers find your volunteers.
Yeah. That's, again, I didn't want to be in charge. I was just coming in first year in the building. I didn't know any parents. I thought the teachers are going to have much better aspect of getting the volunteers. And I was right. We had 45, volunteers for each grade level. We just had plenty. And that allowed, that's something wanted to talk about, is having that many volunteers allowed 3 volunteers per station. And then one could leave at a time, go be with their kid for 20 minutes, come back and relieve somebody else. And the volunteers weren't just stuck at a station. I thought that was pretty important.
Yeah. Yeah. Give them an opportunity to have fun too.
Oh, absolutely.
Other areas that volunteers can come from, look at your high school students, your NHS, your National Honor Society students. You have different clubs of students that are looking for volunteer hours. Reaching out to your community with police departments and fire departments can be a great resource as well. And one that I didn't even think of, your district office staff, your cabinet level and administration and people that work in the district office, an opportunity to come and play with the kids.
Yes, great idea. And a lot of them are really willing to getting some not only student contact, but parent contact there.
Yeah.
You mentioned the police. We were in a conversation with somebody earlier, and the idea of,
is this that story you got arrested?
We're going to leave that one off the podcast. You weren't going to bring that up. You're going to edit that out. Having the police come with their radar. I mean, what a PR move for the police to come. They got their radar and run the 50-yard dash right past it. So not only can they get a time, how fast they can run the 50, but on that big thing, I think this works. I don't know for sure, but how cool would that be? Where it shows up how fast they were running. Man, there'd be a long line for that. And then all the police officer has to do is stand there and high five kids, talk to parents. And I just think it's a great PR thing. Get these kids used to seeing police officers in a friendly, situation. I don't know. I haven't contacted our police yet to see, but it was a conversation that came up the other day. I thought, oh cool. I got to at least check it out. Anyway,
cool.
Keep going. I didn't mean to derail. I
think it's a great point as far as bringing in the police and the fire department and community, just the community as a whole. But, moving on, just some other things that came up, some simpler ones they were talking about, bagging up your equipment, for the stations prior to field day, so that when the day of the setup, all you have to do is grab the bags or have volunteers grab the bags, making maps of how things are supposed to be set up with clear directions. So all you have to do is hand the volunteer a clipboard and they can actually set the station up. Paint lines, if you're going to have a start line for anything, you have a relay race, have a line painted there. So it's a start line but use, one person actually commented, they painted the rotation with like painted arrows on the ground and everything.
Oh, sure.
So kids couldn't go running off into the abyss.
Oh, well, that makes, especially if it's going to be super organized, where one class goes in order to the next one. And yeah, that's a super good idea.
And finally, when it comes to prior, one thing that caught me off guard, the first field day I did in my former district, was the requirement to have background checks for volunteers, and something to look into, because all of a sudden it was a week before field day and we were scrambling because our district required all volunteers to have background checks. So they had to go through the district, and it was free through the district. They went to the district, but it was just an additional step that took a couple days to clear.
Yep.
And it could have been prevented. One of those things you live and learn. Moving on to during field day, some pro tips coming from during field day. And I guess one of the big ones I would take away is put yourself in a position so you're not tied down to one area.
Oh, I think it's huge.
You need to be able to float. You need to be able to, and not just you as the Phy Ed teacher, but you need to have a group of people that have the ability to float, to fill up buckets of water, get more popsicles, whatever it is, to be able to have the staff to do that.
And again, that's what I love about having the teachers freed up. Personally, if you get on the station, and I can ask any teacher to go do me a favor, run and get some ice because some kid fell and hurt his knee or whatever, or just whatever emergency comes up. You got teachers that know the building, they have keys, they have access, they know what's going on. And there's a whole bunch of teachers freed up, as well as you, because you really are the one in charge.
I'll jump on that too, because one person actually commented to have a medical plan in place.
Oh, that's
whether, again, going back to your community resources, whether you have EMS or firefighters, somebody there, but have medical plan, not that you'd ever need it, or hopefully you never need it. But one person commented they actually had a person go down faint because of heat exhaustion. Yep. And just to have that in the back of your head, to have a plan. So even if a kid has to go running to the nurse, that the front door there's somebody at the front door to let that student in, or bathroom breaks for that matter.
Yeah, or escort them, depending on what your policy is. Because if you're dealing with parents, you're not going to be able to let parents escort kids in.
Yeah,
you're going to want to probably have somebody manning that door. Those are all little things you probably don't think about when you can't just let parents escort, even if you think it's their own kids.
And there's going to be things you're going to forget, and that's the beauty of having floaters. Yes. Having people that aren't tied down to one area to put out all those little fires that may come up. Rotation signals. The popular one was to have a PA, just announce it, hey, rotate, or the music, the song changes. An air horn. An interesting one that somebody put was the use of fireworks. I thought, and I have to imagine, my first thought was, this is right in the middle of field day. Somebody sets off a 5-inch firework, but I'm guessing it was way off in the distance or something along those lines. But I thought, talk about creative memories. That's pretty cool.
I think you need Gandalf to be in charge of that. And
totally,
that's the scene that comes to my mind when you say that. I'm like, oh, somebody comes in with a wagon full of fireworks to do this and be ready. Oh, that could be but how cool if you got somebody that's willing to do that, and it's all legal and safe. Got to figure out the details.
They had the problem. There's some permits involved in that, and it just wasn't. Who knows? Other things people talked about: have extra socks and shoes. In the morning, especially with the dew. So little pro tip there.
You mean for you or for the kids? Or both?
Or probably both, actually.
Yeah.
Kids come in, yeah.
Yep.
Good point. Starting with a kickoff ceremony. And in my former district, we actually had our music teacher. And this was his idea. That's utilizing all your staff and listening to what they can add to it. He had his choir start with the national anthem. So we had the 4th and 5th grade choir kick us off with the national of them singing the national anthem, and we gave some directions, and that was a really cool way to kick off our field day.
Wow, That is kind of cool. I might have to look into that. Our music teacher is super creative. I bet you she'd be up for something like that. That's a great idea.
And
Love it.
the kids rose to the occasion, and they
Oh, for sure.
really proud to do it. So I'd like to incorporate
Yeah.
a flyover sometime. Might have to start with start with a Cessna.
With the fireworks at the same time.
Yeah.
Uh,
But how
oh,
cool that,
great ideas.
other things that came up was having a volunteer tent with water and snacks for the volunteers.
Sure.
The ability to give them a little break as well.
Yeah.
And then, the other one during it comes out was different station ideas. And we didn't want to spend a whole lot of time going through all the different station
Yeah.
ideas because there's a number of them out there. But one of the first things I would add is to lean on other people and even ask your other special teachers, your art teacher, your music teacher, your technology,
Yeah.
do you have a station idea? And you'd be surprised what people come up with. And that it creates that community event versus just a
Right.
new event.
Right. Just out of curiosity, how long do you usually do yours? And what did you get any feedback from people on social media on, is it an all-day event? Is it a 3-hour? Is it an hour per grade level, or how, just any feedback
So
on
that was
that?
actually kind of all over the place. That's a really good point. So there were some groups that did it. It was an all-day event. So they actually had a lunch break in the middle. And that
Mhm.
seemed to be like the more traditional track and field event,
Right.
field day. The rotation ones seemed to be kind of like a kindergarten broken up between K1 and 2 and 3, 4, and 5. So,
Okay.
and then the festival model that seemed to be broken up into shorter segments. But ours personally, we run about 10-minute events, and it runs for about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Then you may not need that tent, as much. If you're gonna have an all-day event, you want to definitely have people getting refreshed and getting water. If you're only out there for an hour and a half, that might be overkill, but that's something neither here nor there, I guess. People can kind
And
of
people I think are always reaching for new station ideas. And I think you can go to social media and Twitter and just put that out there. But some that really caught my interest was, the go-tos of ones that I've seen in the past or heard about that really caught my interest was having some sort of water relay, or they're always popular. And my pro tip for that one is just to have that station really close to some water source, because you're constantly going to be filling buckets, and not to have to drag them, 100 yards, but have a water source. And maybe your fire department with a fire truck sitting there could be a cool thing.
Yep.
But some sort of water relay.
Or if you do water balloons, double check about the latex.
Yeah.
The rules. Often if there is somebody highly allergic to latex, the district knows about it, and then you should know about that ahead of time. Being outside, it's a lot safer, even for those people that are allergic, and they can know to stay away. But it's just still good to check that out ahead of time before you fill up 200 water balloons and then find out you can't use them. That could be a bummer.
We had a shoe kick station where the kids just saw how far they could kick their shoes, and you had an interesting twist to that one. I was like, whoa, that is cool.
Well, we had some of our classes were at the middle school, which had a real football field with field goals. And I was like, oh, we're just going to kick the shoes. Let's kick for field goals. And kids loved it.
I bet that was wild.
It was a fun event for that. I don't know why. And you just put up a simple goal like that, and there's something that's fulfilling about kicking your shoe through that field goal. Simple, but it's fun.
A popular one for us is a simple fun run where the kids run, maybe it's probably one lap around the track, but at the end they get a popsicle.
Okay.
The fire department, we had volunteers from the fire department handing out the popsicles.
Okay.
And I said that was just a cool one. Again, an opportunity for kids to see the firefighters, and it was a really cool one. Plus they got a popsicle. We got the popsicles. Our PTO, funded that, but even without a PTO, if you went and talked to a grocery store or something, a community, talk to local bank for donations or something like that.
Even if you just use freezies instead of popsicles, you can get 200 freezies for $8, so it doesn't have to break the bank if you have to do it that way even. So, yeah. You had another one that, I don't know if you know the person who told you on social media, but something about a photo booth.
Oh yeah. That was a good one. Somebody that was on that was on social media. Somebody, thanks for reminding me. Somebody, one of their stations was a photo booth.
Yeah.
Where the class, they had the rotations. So classes rotated from station to station, and one of them, so they were able to take a class picture with all kinds of various backgrounds that they got to choose from, and costume stuff, and just a traditional photo booth. So that was actually the teacher commented, the person that posted that commented how that was so well looked at, that just the opportunity to get a picture.
Yeah, and this day and age, everybody's got cell phones, so you wouldn't even have to be as elaborate if you just kind of had a couple of things there. Parents are there with their cell phones, and the kids are just posing in different goofy things with their friends, and it can be that simple. You just have one general setup. I don't know, that struck me as something that I might need to look at adding.
It seems pretty simple. Or it seems it can be as elaborate as you want it to be.
Right, or simple, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And both would be cool. One thing also somebody commented I thought was a good reminder was to make sure you are in a position to have fun too. I think that goes to not being tied down, but making sure that the day is fun for you as well. So let's chat about after field day. It's all over with.
Yeah.
And utilizing cleanup crews. They had dedicated volunteers that this is, and the person had commented how they, before, just like you teach the stations, or you give insight or a handout on how to set up the stations. This person actually went as far as how to clean up. Where does all this stuff go? And as much as even putting it back in the equipment room. So they had a dedicated cleanup crew to help take care of that burden. I thought that was a really good idea.
That's kind of cool. Yeah.
And then sending out thank yous and not forgetting to celebrate, whether it's celebrating yourself at home later that night, or celebrating as a teaching staff or a support staff, or just a group after school somewhere. But making sure you take time to celebrate. Yeah,
it's also a good time to write down notes for the following year.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Little things that you might have noticed
while it's fresh in your head.
Yep. And then try to figure out where to put that paper where you're going to actually read it before next year.
Make a note of where you put the notes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe go to next year's calendar and put it on there, and then put notes right on there so it comes up in the following year or something.
Oh, that's actually a really good idea. I'm going to start after spring break every year. I start my field day planning, so I put a note in my Google Calendar. Just type up my notes in a Google Doc and put that link right in there.
It's a great. I don't know. We just kind of came up with that on a whim, but yeah, because that's my biggest thing. I'll take notes, but where in the world is that piece of paper that I did a year ago? I have a hard time. Most people are more organized than I am, though, so they probably have a folder and they'll pull it out. They have no problem with that. So no. Any other things you want to talk about that came up with the social media for dealing with after?
Kind of summed it up, especially the after part. Like I said, the cleanup crew was something, and the jotting down the notes immediately after, I think, are some really important ones to. And I would also, somebody put in there, sending out thank yous. You have your thank you. Maybe it's over a loudspeaker or something, but taking the time to send out thank you letters or thank you notes to the various people that help make the day possible.
So as I'm thinking through all this, I'm kind of thinking, well, we always talk about the why. Why do we do this? What is this, a PE thing? Is this, why do we have a track and field day, and why is it such a big deal all across the country?
Well, I think field day is an end of the year school celebration. It brings together the parents, the community, and the school. I believe it creates memories for the students.
Yep.
And like we had said, field day is not my day. It needs to be our day.
And that is Thinking PE.
Connect with us on Facebook and Twitter at Thinking PE. Find us on all your favorite podcast providers by searching Thinking PE. For more resources and videos, go to www.thinkingpe.com. Thanks for listening.